Yeah, incident response. What you gonna do when they come for you?
That's a good one.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is the sickly Donna Grindle.
Look, the nemesis finally got me. I almost made it to the end of the public health emergency without COVID getting me. But
You had to go.
Great time for my 60th birthday.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, there were like 20-something of us. 6 of us ended up with it. Ironically, it's only the people that had never had Omicron got it. So that tells you how nasty this new one is. This latest variant. It's subvariants that got married to make a new subvariant. And this intermarriage thing in Omicron is brutal.
Yeah. You got the oh my God version.
Yeah. Oh, crap. But if I could just get my sinuses clear, I think I would be a new person. No, I'd still want to pass out right now. So we better get this done.
All right. We're going to skip all of the nonsense and get straight to it so we don't lose Donna in the middle of the show.
This is commitment so that we never miss a Friday.
I know. That is commitment for sure.
That's it.
All right. So today we're going to be going over some of the revisions and modifications to the HICP technical volumes. And we talked a little bit about this when we interviewed Eric Decker, but we wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive into this for our use case.
Yeah. Just, well, there's overviews and then there's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So we're bringing it down, going to talk about specifics as long as we can. All right. Well, lead on, Kinky Turtle.
Yeah. So a few of the key updates we'll cover, and this is in the executive summary document, but we mentioned this again with the previous interview with the previous speaker.
He's a funny guy.
That email phishing is now social engineering. So it's I'm glad they changed that for sure, because a lot more to worry about than just email phishing. Cybersecurity practice number 10 is now cybersecurity oversight and governances. And then there's some new sub-practices, one being cyber insurance, which is, I'm glad they added that, because the funny part about it is if you go to get cyber insurance, which is the recommendation, they're going to ask you in your application, are you doing a lot of the things that HICP says you need to do anyway?
Exactly. It helps.
Yeah. So, for us, that's been the biggest driver of conversations about cybersecurity is clients and prospects coming to us saying, can you help me with my cyber insurance application?
Yeah.
And then we're like, yeah, all these things we've been telling you that you need, they're telling you that you need.
Or they're going to charge you more.
Right. So,
or not even insure you if
Yeah.
you're that bad.
Or they'll insure you and just not cover you when you need it. Who knows?
I know, right?
But the more dangerous part is when you go into these things and you don't know what you're saying yes to, and you're like, yeah, we do that. Or yeah, my IT company's doing that. And then when you have a claim, you find out, no, you're not doing that. And nobody's doing that for you.
Yeah. If you made assumptions on that application, you might want to go back and make sure those assumptions are actually being handled.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know about assume.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Benny Hill. So the last one was the attack. Well, actually, it wasn't the last one. The cyber risk assessment and management was added. And then the last one was the attack simulations. So fun stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You want to get into the things about the updates to technical volume 1 for small organizations?
And I think there were, if you've reviewed technical volume 1 and now you look at technical volume 1 2023 version, it's a significant update.
Mm-hmm.
trying desperately to create the environment that the small entities really need. And you and I both were involved in the review process and discussions of this particular volume more than anything on the medium one, trying to handle those debates, shall we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where I'm in the meeting and they're like, we're going to do this, and this. And then I wait until they're done and go, none of that's going to work in the small environment.
Yeah.
So let's hit cybersecurity practice number 1, email protection systems.
Let's do it. All right. So for sub-practice A, it's the email system configuration.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody does that. They just buy it and it works, right?
But I have the cloud version.
Yeah. So they did update the editorial content for how to identify email offerings that are more likely to offer some level of security and safeguards. I usually just tell people use Microsoft or Google.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand there are other ones out there, and there are other ones out there that will do as well. It's just easier to say use Microsoft or Google.
Well, and even with those, you got to set them up right.
Oh, absolutely. And they'll tell you that too. It does surprise me. Well, probably shouldn't say it surprises me, but people still don't understand that you can't just buy these products and they are secure and ready to go out of the box. They tell you that you have to do these things, just like they don't provide backups for you. And people still to this day are saying, what? I thought Microsoft was backing up my email. I thought Google was backing up my email. No, they are not.
No, we got that.
Yeah.
No, we do that on our own. You can count on them. But what if they fail?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's things that they do a whole backup. They can restore everything, not a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons you need to actually think through what you get instead of assume that it's there.
Yeah. Just ask questions. It's amazing. Sometimes the answers you'll get.
Uh-huh.
One of the easiest parts, and this is added there, was the encouragement of the use of MFA, multi-factor authentication. And it references some resources to help support its implementation. And this is a thing too that it still boggles my mind that people aren't using MFA everywhere, but at least use it in your email.
Yes, please. At least.
And to kind of bring this back around, talking about Microsoft and Google, a lot of folks don't use Microsoft 365 or Google just for email. They use the entire environment of that product. So for us, and we're using Microsoft, so we'll also use Teams and we'll use OneDrive and we'll use SharePoint and all this other stuff. It still doesn't click with a lot of people that if somebody gets access to your email account, it's not just your email account, it's your Microsoft account. So they have access to your OneDrive and your SharePoint and your calendar and your contacts and everything else that's in that environment.
Everything.
Mm-hmm. But we had somebody recently call us and they're like, well, we had business email compromise, but it's only our email. We don't really have anything in there that we care about. And I'm like, no, not only your email.
No.
Everything you have is in Google Drive, right? Yeah. But they didn't get access to that, just our email. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is a common misconception or misperception. I never know which one's right, but you got it wrong if that's what you think.
Wrong.
So take the time to understand where you're putting things. And, I'm working with a friend who's, going out on their own for the first time ever and helping them understand how to configure all of this. Nope. We're going to do this. But why? I love it that you're asking. Please continue to ask. And I do not blow them off. I want them to understand. So, if your IT folks are blowing you off, you need to back that up.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand, where is my stuff?
Yeah. So for sub-practice B, which is education, they added the recommendation to have a process to follow for whenever you have suspicious email messages. You know, who are you going to report this to, and who's the appropriate resource for you?
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important question. In fact, we're currently doing an assessment for a firm, and one of the questions I asked all the end users was, "What is your process for getting a suspicious email, or you think it's a breach or anything, any kind of security incident? What is the process that you should follow?" And I can tell just by the responses, because this is a form, but I can tell by the responses, everybody's like, not real sure. Because I'm getting the size of the organization is only like 10 users, and I'm getting various responses to that question.
Yeah, that's never a good sign.
No. And it's like, one person was like, well, we just tell everybody else what's going on. So it's kind of like, the groundhog effect. Everybody pops their head up and like, oh,
yeah.
Are you getting this?
What do they call that? Gophering or something like that?
Yeah.
It's everybody.
Yeah. So, but that's hard to do when everybody's work from home in certain organizations. Kind of hard to pop your head up and say, "Hey, are you seeing this too?" Watch out, everybody! Phishing coming.
I know. It's time for many of us to, we have been trying.
Mm-hmm.
We have been trying. And as you and I discussed about it's still a responsibility of the end user.
Mm-hmm.
So we just got to go in and talk to every one of them, which is painful for me and you.
Yeah. I had a client this morning sent me an email. Apparently our invoicing system has been emailing her for months to update her credit card on file because it's expired. And she told me in the email, she says, "You've got me so scared to death to click on anything that I was not about to put my credit card information." I was like, well, great. Fantastic. You should be scared.
That's awesome.
But it is a legit email coming from us. But when she first told me about it yesterday, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know that we would be sending you. Of course, she didn't say we. She goes, you're sending me email asking for my credit card information. I'm like, no, I'm not. But yeah, good for her for being cautious.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, so we know email is the bane of our existence.
Yeah.
But there were a couple updates there, and it's really just trying to get people to do the things, continue down the path of cyber hygiene with email. But then we get to cyber practice number 2, which is endpoint protection systems. And you can tell us about the changes there, David.
Yeah, so they added a few areas to that table, table number 4. And what it added is things for managing the administrative accounts, which we always talk about being fairly important on any endpoint.
Right.
Don't let everybody be an administrator. Of course, auditing the software applications, managing end-of-life operating systems, all those things that if you have IT staff or an MSP, of course, did you know, side note, the MSP, the term is now changing or dying?
What's it going to be now?
Now it's TSP, Technology Service Provider, is the new thing. So I've become aware of that lately. So now we have to say MSP, TSP.
We were just getting people to understand what an MSP was.
I know. I saw that not long ago, and I was like, what is this term that I'm seeing everywhere now? And that's what it is. I mean, all the bigger companies within the MSP market have started using the TSP thing. So I say that to say, if you see that, then we're talking about the same thing. TSP, MSP, same thing. Anyway, so they've added those things. So make sure to look at certainly what applications are on the endpoints and have a way to monitor that, because you might not want some of the applications that people are putting on there. And are they being kept up to date? Again, I've talked about this a lot, but patching is difficult across multiple operating systems and multiple different types of software applications. It is a hard thing to do. So you need to keep up with, are things being patched? Are things being updated? And some things are a lot harder to update than others.
Oh, yes.
Go ahead and give you a little heads up. I think we're about October, I believe, is going to be the 2-year mark for the end of life for Windows 10. I think it ends in October of 25. So it gives you 2.5 years now to start planning. Yeah, to start planning for that, and don't wait till the last minute. So certainly in the first part of 2025, you should already be ready. But for those of you who have a lot of endpoints, I always get asked, like, can we not scale this to where we can update a few at a time instead of you coming to me saying we need 50 new computers at one time? Well, here's your 2.5 point mark. Do it now. Go ahead and start looking at what you have and replacing them over the next couple of years. And that way you won't be hit with a massive bill all at one time to get these things done.
Yeah, now's the time you do that instead of asking, why am I having to do this 2 years from now?
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind that not all computers will be upgradable. So don't just assume you can upgrade everything you have.
No, probably not. I mean, in fact, even the computer I use, I can't go to Windows 11 because the CPU will not support Windows 11, even though I've got everything else that it needs. My CPU, which is a beast of a CPU, it's not something that's slow by any stretch, but because it's, I guess, 3 years old now or whatever. But I'm the type of person.
Older than that. The one I had was older than that, and it was still working well.
Oh yeah. Well, when I buy computers, I buy computers that will probably still run fantastic in a decade because I buy super fast computers.
Something's got to put up with you.
Yeah. But I can't upgrade to Windows 11. So I know that I've got to replace my computer in the next couple of years or less.
Yeah, I just went through it. Right.
Yep. But my laptop's on Windows 11, but my desktop can't do it. Even though it's a beast, it won't do it.
Wow.
All right. So that's one of the things about the endpoint protections. And then they added some practical advice. I love how they worded that on how to turn on the vendor supplied endpoint protection in hardware and software applications. Yeah, you should do that. And I also talked about securing remote access and then the use of VPNs and things like that. So all those things super important, especially the securing the remote access. That should either not be there, turned off, or if you've got somebody that does use it, then you need to make sure you're doing that in a secure fashion.
You are correct, David.
Thanks for your participation. And then there was some advice given about communicating with your IT and third-party vendors. So hello, TSPs.
There you go.
There should always be a lot of communication. And I don't care how much I say this, even to my own clients. It's hard to get them to understand. If you're making a technology decision, get me involved before you do it. I still to this day, even though I preach this so much to my own clients, they'll come in and they'll say, like when we had one this past week, we're going with a new VoIP vendor. Here's their information. And I'm like,
oh man.
Okay, but why couldn't you have brought me in during your review of this, and let's have conversations about what this was going to mean for you. So anyway, after the fact tends to be the way IT's brought in, and I don't know how to make that change because I've been hounding it for years and it still doesn't happen. It's an afterthought.
We just need to find a new way to communicate it. Maybe we say if it has anything to do with the internet.
I've even went so far as to say if it plugs into the wall, give me a call.
If it plugs into the wall, folks, give me a call.
Yeah, we used that for about 3 years ago. That was what we said all the time. But then we started having people call us for all kind of crazy stuff. Like, I'm plugging my lamp into the wall. I'm calling you.
Oh, God.
I'm like,
Don't
okay.
use that then.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, this is not working.
Actually, though, that could be a problem these days.
Yeah. These
You
days
know?
it can. Like, my coffee warmer has got Bluetooth. It actually does. But anyway.
I know. But, I'm get alerts from my sprinkler system. I mean, anything could do it. And I just don't. I guess we just have to answer the call about the random desk lamp.
I guess so. But, I'm not an expert on desk lamps and things like that. So it becomes problematic.
Well, you are problematic. So.
All right. So that brings us to number 4. Yes, number 3 was skipped. So we didn't make a mistake. Nothing in number 3. Number 4, data protection and loss prevention. There was, they modified the definition of a security breach so that it aligns better with the terms commonly found within federal and state laws. So that's always good. So that when you're reading it, it's like, oh, wait a minute, but that sounds different. And then under sub-practice B, under the procedures, they did some extensive revisions to account for the individual identifiable health information. So IIHI, that's created, stored, and transmitted by small healthcare organizations and things like that. So take a look at what that means to you. And they provided references to OCR guidance about sending unencrypted emails to patients, because guess what? You can do that under certain cases. That's one of your trick questions, right?
Yeah. Yes, it's always good to throw a little something in there to keep them on their toes, is what we said.
Yeah. And then they also referred to the technical volume number 2 for more advanced technologies to safeguard information systems from unauthorized access, which is to say that just because you're doing technical volume number 1 doesn't mean you shouldn't know a little bit about number 2, which is for medium and large organizations, because you might already be doing some of those things, or you might be able to do some of those things, or you should do some of those things, even though you are small.
Mm-hmm. And really, if you're small, you want to know that whoever you're using for IT has reviewed this and takes it seriously and doesn't blow it off.
Yeah. And most TSPs, I'm going to use that the whole time now. Most TSPs or MSPs have not reviewed this, but it should be.
Have you gotten HIPAA for TSPs?
I did.
Of course you did. All right.
I did. So as soon as I saw the term, I'm like, going to buy that domain right now.
We also have to get a lot of other things handled. Anyway, I digress.
But they should be able to understand it. The technical volumes, they're very well written in such a way that even most non-technical people should understand it. So they've done a good job of that.
There were so many debates about who the audience is of this document.
Oh my goodness.
That and I can tell you major discussions about how to phrase things and whether or not this is appropriate in a small environment. So, and even though David and I think our opinions are grand, they didn't all, make it to the level of being part of this guide. We get to add our own little flair still. But for the most part, when you're looking at things like even where this data protection and loss prevention refers to technical volume 2, it's because there are so many things that could be used and could be used in a small environment that it just became, go look at that and see if you can use any of it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. So
if history is any teacher for us, and I believe it is, you will see over time that some of the technical volume 2 stuff will filter down to 1, because it wasn't that long ago that you couldn't ask a small practice to do vulnerability management. It's too expensive.
Uh-huh.
And now you can do it. And you should do it.
It's not an option anymore.
Right. So one of the things right now, we always say, having a SIM is too expensive, usually for a small practice. At some point, it'll come down to where that will become something that we can do even in a small environment. But right now, it's cheaper than it was, but it's still a lot. But as someone once said, though, we ain't got them doing the easy stuff yet.
They're not doing the basics. Let's face it. All right. So number 5 is inventory, and we didn't really change anything there. I mean, there's some cleanup of phrases and stuff, but nothing major change anywhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to network management, and boy, let me tell you, I don't know if you remember the discussion about network segmentation for small groups, but
yeah, it was painful.
Yeah, but it's still there, and it should be there, and you need to understand network segmentation if you are doing network management, period.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't even what we changed.
No.
You know?
And the harder part of that too is, again, working from home, because we were running into this, ever since COVID, we're running into this working from home, and our people on segmented networks at home, and most of them don't even know what that is, and they don't have the equipment that can do it. And it's just, it's very problematic. We've mentioned this before, but when you go to work from home, whether it's COVID related or not, you introduce a lot more risk and challenges that need to be addressed. It's not just grab your laptop and let's work from home every Friday. There's a lot to consider about it.
Mm-hmm. So, but the thing that was done under intrusion prevention, subpractice C, we added the recommendations may necessitate a level of expertise to implement, requiring the assistance of a qualified third-party support service to implement and manage these intrusion prevention controls. Ironically, I'm getting an alert from my intrusion prevention system, right? Like just did before we started talking about that. I thought it was funny. But I remember this discussion. Intrusion prevention should be there. It's not impossible for it to be there in a small organization.
Mm-mm.
But, so often we run into, I am the X of the organization and I'm good with computers. I know how to do this myself. I don't need to pay anybody. And that is, you and I both know, again, we don't know how you could do this without some professional, not just somebody good with computers, a professional who understands it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and I bounce back and forth getting advice from each other.
Yeah.
And we know what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, just keeping up with my own environment is, at home, my home office and the segmentation and the updates and the patching and just doing it for myself. And I've got all the tools. It's still a lot of work. Yeah. So no, for these people who are, I'm running my own business and I do my own IT stuff. And also, by the way, I'm the doctor and everything else, or I'm the practice manager. No, you're not. You might think you are, but you're not doing a good job of this.
Well, and there's more to it than, we've got our cybersecurity locked down. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more to it than we've got our cybersecurity locked down. And I talked to a business owner while I was, in Key West dealing with things, and I got a message from, another business owner who always thought they had it covered. And I'm like, well, there's more to it than that. And they are learning there's more to it than that. Mm-hmm. Which is a perfect segue to cybersecurity practice number 8.
Yeah, incident response. What you gonna do when they come for you?
That's a good one.
Yep. So they did do some revisions to align with other resources and the capabilities and the needs of a small healthcare organization, because you should have a incident response plan, and it's amazing how many people don't. Especially so many free versions out there to start with, Yep. You don't have to start and looking at a blank screen anymore. Just so many of them out there. NIST has them, SANS has them, Heck, even ChatGPT will give you one.
Uh-huh.
But
it's great. You just ask for stuff. But there's a good framework for doing it that is included in the NIST guide for small business incident recovery. There's a Federal Trade Commission guide for small business incident management. And this new table that we added hopefully will open up some eyes to some people who think they have a plan.
Yep. But you certainly should have a plan, because if you don't have one, trying to create one on the fly, not a good idea.
Well, and that's the whole thing. Everybody thinks the plan is I'll call IT.
Mm-hmm. I'll call Donna. How many times do you hear that?
Oh, God.
I mean, even when we were doing the boot camp, we'd say something, and there would be inevitably there's always somebody in every boot camp. I'm calling Donna.
Well, I'm going to call Donna. I'm going to call Donna about that. I'm going to call Donna about that. And that's great. Appreciate you. However, it requires more than you think. And all I'm going to be able to do is tell you need these things that I told you needed before. And, I could come in and help direct things, but you still have. So the thing that's in the table that I hope people read and take to heart, whether it be IT people who think they have it covered, business owners who think they have it covered, is the roles and responsibilities that were included in this table. To me, this is one of the best things that was added, is to get that point across. There's the incident commander, the executive senior leadership level representation, cybersecurity team, technical team, two different teams, not the same team, legal team, emergency management of, your clinical concerns, and public affairs, marketing, and communication. And you got to communicate not just with each other. You've got to communicate. You have to have so many different communication plans. It's crazy. And they should. And you have to have a team to do that. And then, of course, the privacy and compliance team who's keeping up with all of the assessments and requirements. And then you get to the other external teams. So that great table, start with the table and then follow the requirements there and say, who's going to do that work? Because it has to be done. Yeah.
If you're going to call Donna, just do it pre-incident, not in the middle of it.
That's right. We can at least make a list of people to call.
In addition to.
Yeah. Right. So that though, to me, is one of my favorite things we added. So if you don't do anything else with HICP, go get the incident response guide or the incident response practices detail and use the guides it references, and at least make sure you got that table covered.
I agree.
I concur.
All right. So wasn't anything new added to number 9, I don't believe. And then the last one, number 10, cybersecurity oversight and governance.
Yes.
And so as I mentioned, that's hard to say, governance. As I mentioned in the beginning that we changed that. It was cybersecurity policies. And so now it's a little different. And so they made policies now a sub-practice of that. And then they also have a cyber risk assessment and management as a sub-practice. Thank goodness. But that's going to enable us to look at, the exploration of the roles of how the risk assessment and the management of the security of the IT infrastructure is done and all that. And you should definitely be doing some type of risk assessment. And then, of course, right after the risk assessment is your risk management plan, because it does you no good to figure out what your risks are, but not how you're going to manage them. But it's funny that I see that sometimes, we do a risk assessment, and then when you start talking about how you're going to manage those risks, there's like, oh, I just needed a risk assessment.
Yeah.
All right, but what are you going to do with it?
You're not supposed to get the same answers over and over, or worse answers over and over every year. It's not just paperwork.
Yeah. It's like identifying the risk is not the goal. But it is funny. All right. And then they also added security awareness training as a sub-practice C to, to have something there that you're taking the time. I love this conversation because every time it's like, yeah, but security awareness and training is so boring. How do we make it fun? And you and I talk about the numerous ways that you can do that. One being this podcast. There's tons of free training out there, including this podcast.
Well, and now we have knowledge on demand coming out. Plus, there's a clinical one coming out from the coordinating council. So we should probably cover that. We'll cover that in one of the next couple of episodes because it's really important. There's a ton of that is available now, free of charge, designed to get clinical people to understand cybersecurity.
Yep. So no more of the I can't afford it because it's free. So the only other thing you got to figure out is how to address the I ain't got time for that. Because you ain't got time for a breach either. But when it happens, guess what?
Yeah, you think you don't have time for training, just wait.
Yeah.
Just wait.
Yeah. So make time for it. It doesn't have to be a big deal. This stuff of, hey, let's come in on a Saturday for 8 hours and do training. Don't do that.
Well, I mean, you may choose to do that, but that shouldn't be your only way, and it shouldn't be your security awareness way.
Yeah.
But there is a point that you have to include things like facility security. How do you handle visitors? How do you make sure that only the people that should see the data at your facility? How do you lock down all the stuff? And then workstation security, the clean desk policy and all of that, but security policy training. So often it's like, well, we trained on HIPAA. No, you trained on the standards of HIPAA. You never trained on your own policies and procedures. So no wonder they don't follow them. I'm not saying, right. I'm just saying.
That's right. And then the last one for sub-practice number 10, or practice number 10, sub-practice D, and we already talked about it, cyber insurance that was added. And
it's a great discussion, actually, that talks about what should it cover, what should you consider, and it does make sure, I love this part, where is it? I got to find it. At the end, it says, review your application closely and answer any questions about your business to the best of your abilities. Review it closely, people. And seek advice with questions about the scope or meaning of the question and how they relate to your practices.
Yeah. And you're probably not going to be able to do this without having IT help you. I mean, the ones I've seen, there's even been some I've seen where we've had to go back to the insurance provider and say, we need you to explain this more. Like, what is it you're trying to get? Because even the questions sometimes for us were not easy to understand because they have them worded. So it's not going to be easy to do all of it. Now, obviously there's a lot of it you can do by yourself, but there's usually going to be a section that's going to take some help getting to.
Yeah. So I wholeheartedly encourage everybody to pull the volumes, read them all if you're a TSP or you're involved in any of that kind of consulting or understanding. If not, then find the one that's appropriate for you. There were changes to the medium and large. It was not as extensive, and we can hit those pretty quickly here, which is technical volume 2 is for medium and large. So, and I can tell you, we recommend folks, unless you are tiny, micro tiny, look at small and medium. Look at both. If you are in the solid medium world and you have something you're struggling with, go pull from small and use that as an entry level. So you can move back and forth. There's no rules here. As far as, I can't use that. I'm too small. I'm too big. No, it's not that. Yeah. Anyway, technical volume 2.
They're looking for the Goldilocks plan. Technical volume 2. So in exercise 1, They have the email protection systems. So again, same email protection systems, number one. They added some additional explanations for MFA because, again, you should definitely be doing MFA. Ongoing and targeted training. So this is where you start doing the phishing training. And of course, this is something that the small guys, you should be doing anyway. So even though this is in a medium practice, small guys, you should be doing phishing training for sure.
Yeah, well, phishing training is on everywhere.
Good.
It's everywhere, David. It's everywhere. Everyone should do it.
Let's see here. They also says they added a bullet underneath the workforce education section for this, and they added a recommendation to appoint a change leader and an explanation of what that role is. So, very good. So, change management needs a change leader.
Well, it's all about getting those email protections. Like, we're going to make a change to this. Somebody needs to be figuring it out, and teaching people, and it's all the things, David. It's all the things.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. We'll jump down to practice number 2, endpoint protection systems. There's some new and revised implementation specifications about full disk encryption. Hardened baseline images, patching, end-of-life management, all those things that we've touched on already. There's more information there, so you need to check that out to figure out how that applies to you and which ones you should be doing. Let's see. There's also been some metrics concerning active endpoints with end-of-life issues, micro-segmentation. That's something I think we're going to see more of. And what kind of strategies are involved in that. And then content to explain how to implement and authorize the process of whitelisting. And that's always fun. But
whitelisting is so intensive.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
So that brings us to practice number 4, data protection and loss prevention. They under the medium, they added some further clarification on determining data classifications, and also a bullet for disk to cloud strategies within your backup practices. So lots of cool stuff there. And then under the large organization, they had some more content about mapping data flows and inherent values in that practice.
There is a lot of detail in the medium and large it is written. Because, again, the debate on the small about who the audience is for the document went around and round on who needed to read it. But there is no doubt when you get to medium and large, it's a technical document. And it is written for technical people.
Yeah. All right. Then it talks a little bit about asset management. There was a small change in the medium organizations for that. They added a process of steps there, talking about the procurement sub-practice, which was removed. So look at that. And then down to number 7, vulnerability management. Super important here. This is where they added the change management that we talked about, because you have to have the change leader for the change management. And then for the large organizations there, they added frameworks that could assist the organization with attack simulations. And that's when it gets fun. When you do attack simulations. Instant response was also touched upon for the large organizations. This is practice number 8. They added a paragraph talking about access logs within applications like your EHR and EMRs, and looking at user behavior analytics. And we talk about this a lot.
Yes.
And this is something, believe it or not, that can be done within small practices. But
hey, Our friends Ray and Rob will be thrilled that that's in there.
I know they will. So if you want to know how to do these things, take a look at a product called Sphere, SPHER.
Yeah.
And this is their thing. They do it day in and day out and do a great job of it. So check that out. And then cybersecurity practice number 9, medical device security. Oh, Lord, this is hard to do. So, there's a lot added into those areas. Matter of fact, this is probably where most of the changes took place.
Yeah, in the large, medium and large document, almost every serious amount of effort was put into Practice 9.
Yeah. So just to hit a few of them, it's, the unique IoT considerations are in there about, the IoT specific challenges of medical devices. What are the goals of risk mitigations for medical devices? There's guidance on how to apply HICP and assets moving around, how you're going to manage that. Zero trust models were discussed. Identity and access management, so IAM is discussed, and also microsegmentation. And that's just for the medium. And large, they also added in things about like a risk-based approach. So when you're looking at like the common vulnerabilities and exposures list, the CVEs. Yep. Yeah. They had added guidance about addressing contract negotiations within vulnerability management, information regarding Department of Commerce and the SBOMs
Yes.
initiative, and also added security orchestration and automation response or automated response, the SOAR. I'm sure you're familiar with that if you're in a large organization. And then the last part of this practice was talking about the request for the SBOM and enterprise architecture diagrams as part of your vendor assessment package that has to be done. So lots of stuff added there. And then lastly, on sub-practice number 10 for medium, they added social media to the examples of the policies for consideration so that you have a policy around that.
And there's also in there, in each of these practices, there's suggested metrics to know how you're doing in the medium and large that are very, very helpful for you to, if all you want to do is just see how you're doing, just go look at the metrics.
Yeah.
Go look at the metrics and number of medical devices not currently segmented on wireless or wired networks measured monthly. Okay. Well, go look at that. Or unmitigated high-risk vulnerabilities from your assessment.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. So it is very specific for all who complain about lack of specifics.
Yeah. This is like grade your own paper stuff.
Yeah.
I used to love the grade your own paper in school because I knew that if I screwed up and had stupid answers that I was the only one that knew how bad it was. And so if you don't want somebody else to figure out how bad you are, maybe do a self-assessment and get those things mitigated and then go out and have somebody else do a third-party assessment.
Well, there's a ton of people who tell us, I can't have you come in until I get time to do some of this stuff. And then I'm like, well, you told us that for 4 years. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get the stuff done.
Yeah. It's like the people who have to vacuum before the housekeeper comes in.
Yeah. I understand. I get the stuff out of the floor so they can vacuum. That's it.
No. I know people who will clean the house before the housekeeper gets there to clean the house because they don't want the housekeeper to see how bad it was before they got there.
Oh, no way. That hurts my head.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we wrap this up, Donna?
No, I'm pretty much done.
You toast. All right. Stick a fork in her, folks. Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening to the show this week. Be sure to share it out and, help us grow. Send it out there for everybody else to see. All right. I want to say thanks for Donna for coming back. You could have just stayed gone, but you didn't. Make sure to join us again next week. And remember that HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.